Hi, this is Cassandra Nolan, and my case study country is Belgium. So let's get started. It's located in Western Europe. Belgium has about 40 miles of sea coast on the North Sea at the Strait of Dover and is approximately the size of Maryland. If you wanted to put it into perspective with a state here in the United States based on size. The Meuse and the Schelde are Belgium's principal rivers, and they are important commercial arteries. They also allowed for German occupancy in World War II. I do want to go ahead and let you guys know some of these words I just do not know how to pronounce, and I could not find how to pronounce them. So wish me luck. For the current mode of establishment and the timeline to get to this point. Belgium is now a constitutional monarchy, which is a system of government in which a monarch shares power with a constitutionally organized government. The monarch may be the de facto head of state or a purely ceremonial leader. The Constitution allocates the rest of the government's power to the legislature and judiciary. The Belgian Constitution was first declared in 1831 and has been revised a number of times since then. For instance, the position of Prime Minister was created in 1919 as the effective head of government, and then Vice Prime Minister wasn't created until 1961. Typically, the Prime Minister is appointed by the monarch and approved by the Parliament. Under the terms of the Belgian Constitution, national executive power is vested in the monarch and his Council of Ministers, whereas legislative power is shared by the monarch, a bicameral parliament comprising the Chamber of Representatives and the Senate, and the community and regional councils. In practice, the monarch's role as head of state is limited to representative and official functions. Royal acts must be countersigned by a minister who in turn becomes responsible for them to the parliament. Continuing on, we're skipping over a lot of the Julius Caesar in 5 BC taking over and everything that happened up until the 15th century, and we're only touching on that just so you know what the Low Countries are. In the 15th century, most of the Low Countries, which are now the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, passed to the Duchy of Burgundy and were subsequently inherited by Emperor Charles V. When the latter abdicated in 1555, the territories went to his son Philip II, King of Spain. While the northern part, now the Netherlands, gained its independence in the following decades, the southern part remained under Spanish control until 1713, when it was transferred to Austria. During the wars that followed the French Revolution, Belgium was occupied and later annexed to France. But the downfall of Napoleon, the Congress of Vienna in 1815 reunited the Low Countries under the rule of the King of Holland, which would be the current Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. In 1830, Belgium rebelled against Dutch rule and declared independence, which was approved by Europe at the London Conference of 1830-31. Sorry. The Treaty in Versailles of 1919 gave the area of Eupen, Malmedy, and Moresnet to Belgium. Leopold III succeeded Albert King during World War I in 1934, and in World War II, Belgium was overwhelmed by Nazi Germany, and Leopold III was held prisoner after his refusal to flee. Because of growing opposition to Belgian rule in its African colonies, Belgium granted independence to the Congo, which is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in 1960, and to Rwanda-Urundi, which is now the nations of Rwanda and Burundi, in 1962. Prime Minister V, is what we're going to call him going forward, resigned in June 2007 after his coalition of liberals and socialists were defeated in a general election. He remained in office as caretaker prime minister for more than 6 months. However, as talks between Flemish-speaking and French-speaking parties on forming a government reached a deadlock, leaving the country in political crisis, at King Albert II's request, Mr. V formed an interim coalition government in December of 2007. On March 20th of 2008, Vies Leterme was On March 20th, 2008, Vies Leterme was sworn in as prime minister, ending the political crisis that spanned 9 months. A new government was formed and included both Flemish and French-speaking Democrats, liberals, and socialists. After months of unsuccessful negotiations, Belgium's enduring linguistic divide led to the resignation of Prime Minister Leterme on July 14th of 2008. King Albert II did not immediately accept his resignation, leaving the government again in a caretaker's hands. The king did later accept on December 22nd of 08 and asked Herman van Rompuy to form a new cabinet. Parliament gave Van Rompuy's new government a vote of confidence, 88 to 45, in January of 09. Van Rompuy stepped down in November to become president of the European Council, and Leterme returned for another term as prime minister. He set to work on revising the economy and reducing unemployment. Many of the people of Belgium considered this to be a second chance for Leterme. However, his government collapsed in April of 2010 when the liberal Open VLD party bolted from the coalition in yet another conflict between Flemish and French speakers. The movement to break up Belgium gained steam in June's parliamentary elections when the separatist New Flemish Alliance party won the most seats. After a record 541 days at the hands of caretaker administration, Belgium was prompted by Euro's debt crisis to finally form a new government. Elio Di Rupo, a socialist from the Walloon French-speaking community, took the prime minister's office on December 6 of 11. Di Rupo, at 60, had built a reputation as a talented negotiator. He was sworn in on December 6 of 11, becoming Belgium's first socialist prime minister since 1974, its first francophone prime minister in more than 3 decades, and, fun fact, Di Rupo was EU's first openly gay head of government. In early June of 13, King Albert II attended a midday session of the Belgian cabinet and announced that he would leave the throne later that month on July 21st of Belgium's National Day. He said he was resigning due to health reasons. Therefore, King Albert II at 79 became the second Belgian king to abdicate. His father, King Leopold III, was the first in 1951. I wonder if the Belgian people are concerned about this lineage. Prince Philippe, the eldest king of, Prince Philippe, the eldest child of King Albert II and Queen Paola, became the 7th king of the Belgians on July 21st of 2013. In May of 2014, parliamentary elections, the separatist New Flemish Alliance became the largest party in the language-divided country, taking 20.3% of the vote. The Socialist Party and Flemish Christian Democratic Party tied for second with 11.7% of the vote. And after the vote, leader of the Socialist Party, Prime Minister Elio Di Rupo, resigned. King Philippe accepted Di Rupo's resignation and asked Flemish separatist leader Bart de Wever to lead the coalition talks. After 4 months of negotiations, a very shaky coalition was formed in October with the French-speaking Liberal Reform Movement Party, headed by Charles Michel, joining with the 3 Flemish-speaking parties, the New Flemish Alliance, the Flemish Christian Democrats, and the Open Flemish Liberals and Democrats. For the first time in 25 years, the Socialists will be in the opposition in Belgium's government. For some more current things that have been going on, and by current I mean the 1990s, which even though I feel like was 10 years ago, was not. In the 1990s, Belgium's public life was shaken by a number of serious scandals. 91, a former deputy prime minister and socialist leader was murdered in a contract killing that took several years to come to light. The Dutroux child sex and murder affair in 96 led to national outrage, compounded by the realization that less official negligence and efficiency could have saved the lives of several children. The tragedy fueled pressure for reform of the political, judicial, and police systems. In 1998, along with 2 other major Belgian politicians, former NATO Secretary General Willy Claes was convicted of bribery. In 1999, a public health scandal involving dioxin, a cancer-causing chemical, resulted in the unexpected electoral defeat of Christian Democratic Prime Minister Jean-Luc Dehaene. In June of 1999, the new Prime Minister, Guy V. of the Liberal Party, cobbled together a coalition of Liberals, Socialists, and Greens, which was continued, without the Green parties, after the May 2003 election. His government passed extremely liberal policies, including the legalization of gay marriage and euthanasia, and the partial decriminalization of marijuana. Against the wishes of the Prime Minister's party, a parliamentary majority also extended voting rights at local elections to all foreign residents. A little bit more of a background on how Belgium is broken up so that it makes sense whenever I go through who's the leader of what right now. Prior to 1970, Belgium was a unitary state. An unwritten rule prevailed that except for the prime minister, the government had to include as many Flemish as French-speaking ministers. Tension that had been building throughout the 20th century between the two ethno-linguistic groups led to major administrative reconstructing during the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. A series of constitutional reforms dismantled the unitary state, culminating in the St. Michael's Agreement of September 1992, which laid the groundwork for the establishment of the federal state. National authorities now share power with executive and legislative bodies representing the major political defined regions of Belgium: the Flemish region, Flanders; the Walloon region, Wallonia; and the Brussels capital region, and the major language communities of the country, which would be Flemish, French, and German. Getting pretty close to wrapping this up now. Under the 1994 Constitution, autonomy was granted to the Walloon region in Wallonia, the Flemish region, Flanders, and the bilingual Brussels capital region. Autonomy was also guaranteed for the Flemish, French, and German-speaking communities. The central government retains responsibility for foreign policy, defense, taxation, and social security. The regional authorities have primary responsibility for the environment, energy, agriculture, transportation, and public works. They share responsibility for economic matters, labor, and foreign trade with the national government, which also retains responsibility for defense, foreign policy, and justice. The community councils have authority over cultural matters, including the use of language and education. Communal and provincial elections take place every 6 years. Regional and community council elections occur every 5 years, and national elections are held at least every 5 years. Deputies to the Chamber of Representatives are elected directly, as are certain senators, while other senators are either designated by the community councils from their ranks or selected by the rest of the Senate. Each deputy and senator has a language, community, and a regional affiliation. Belgium's leading political parties were long divided into French and Flemish-speaking wings. However, as the country moved toward federalism, the differences between these wings became more pronounced, and they became increasingly discrete organizations. The traditional parties include the Social Christians, that is, the Flemish Christian Democrats and their French counterpart; the Humanist and Democratic Center; the Socialist Party, which is divided into Flemish and French-speaking branches; the Flemish Liberals and Democrats; and the French-speaking Reform Movement. Other ethnic and special interest parties also have emerged, including French and Flemish-speaking Green parties, Flemish separatist parties, and the right-wing National Front in Wallonia. Because representatives are elected on the basis of proportional representation, recent governments have been dominated by coalitions of the strongest parties. The Vlaams Belang, a party with a strong anti-immigrant message that succeeded the right-wing Vlaams Blok, had notable electoral success in Flanders in the late 90s and early 2000s. To go over who does what currently, King Philippe King is the current king. When King Albert announced on the 3rd of July of 13 that he would abdicate in favor of his son, Philip's eldest child, Prince Elizabeth, became his heir apparent and is expected to become Belgium's first queen regent. Charles Vise Jean Gleysen Michael, referred to as Charles Michael, is a Belgian politician who has been Prime Minister of Belgium since 2014 and is the President-elect of the European Council. Rudy Vervoet is the Minister-President of the Brussels Capital Region and is the person leading the government of the Brussels Capital Region. Geert Bourgeois is the President of the head of the Flemish government, which is the executive branch of the Flemish region and Flemish community. Rudy de Mott is the Minister-President of the French community, is the head of the government of the French community of Belgium. Oliver Pasch is the Minister-President of the German-speaking community, is the head of the government of the German-speaking community of Belgium, one of the 3 communities of the country. And finally, Willy Boris is the Minister, President of Wallonia, and the head of the Walloon government, the executive power of Wallonia, one of the 3 regions of Belgium once again. I actually have 2 things on here that people should remember. Germany's invasion of Belgium in 1914 set off World War I. And despite having no formal government, in July of 2011, Belgium became the second country in the EU to approve legislation that outlawed face coverings, such as the Islamic veil. After looking over everything for this country, Belgium seems to be alarmingly different from every place we've studied so far. If I had to choose similarities, I would say Belgium most closely resembles, just based on internal differences and discontent, that of Ireland be Northern Ireland and that whole area. Belgium is separated by language and political parties and affiliations to the point that the current political atmosphere is in turmoil still and has been off and on for quite some time. Thank you.